Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino here, and boy, do we have a treat for you here. We have some special coverage coming up here today to talk about Big Brother 22 and much more, as we are joined by one of the co-hosts of a brand new Big Brother podcast and YouTube channel. Please welcome in a man that I have long wanted to talk to on a podcast. A man
really?
that I met some almost 18 years ago. Here is the great Jason Guy. Jason, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. And we got Taryn with us. This is great.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, Jason. So nice to have you over here. Of course, Jason is the co-host with Danielle Reyes of the new Secret Alliance podcast.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how that came to be and much more here with Jason. Of course,
I will say, though, the name was kind of a fluke. And then this season, last week, we had Enzo talking about the Secret Alliance. And then this week, Julie mentioned it on the live show. I think in Bailey's eviction, she talked about it. So we're like, hey, we're onto something with a good name for our podcast being the Secret Alliance. But that's what we were.
The secret is out.
Season 3. Yeah, secret's out.
Okay. All right. Well, we're very excited also that Taryn Armstrong is here. Taryn, how are you?
This is amazing. I mean, Rob, last week I talked to Kaser. This week I'm talking to all of my Big Brother.
No. There's Janelle, Kaser, and then there's Jason.
There's Jason Guy way up here for me. I loved you on your season.
And you really have been watching since then. You didn't go back and have to watch it on All Access. You've watched this long.
Yes, since I was a child. This has been my life. Yeah.
Now this is good. This is strong parenting. Like, do I allow my kids to start in watching a Big Brother and Survivor yet?
If you want them to grow up to be somebody who stands in a small room with a weird background and lights and cameras talking to people who played Big Brother, then maybe, yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I need to think about all of this, but that's good. Okay, good.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, not only that, Taryn and I actually did a rewatch of Big Brother 3 only a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Before rewatching old shows was cool.
Right. Now it's a thing and it's easy to do. But what did you go on eBay and buy some old DVDs?
No, we watched it on CBS All Access.
Oh, okay. They did have it there a couple of years back when you did this. Okay. Okay, good. It's a whole lot easier now when people say, how do I watch it? Because I know after our season, they did release it on DVD, but Big Brother 3, and maybe they did some other DVD stuff, maybe with 4, but I think then it was shelved. So for a decade, you couldn't really find it unless you bought an eBay. And there were the actual DVD sets that came out. So you got all 30-something episodes, 30 hours of Big Brother from season 3. But there were bootleg copies too. So people, and these where they recorded it, and it was impressive that they did this. But yeah, it was something, and so people couldn't really see it. And now it's, especially even this summer when Big Brother is about to begin, people subscribe to the feeds and they start watching old seasons. And so I'll get all this love from people and they go, hey, I was 4 when your season aired, but I've been watching Big Brother for the past 8 years. And now I went back and watched season 3 and it was so cool. And you and Danielle had such a great bond. It means a lot. It really does. Still, after all these years, to hear people enjoying our season.
Jason, well, could you tell us, what are you and Danielle up to? That I know that there was a lot of buzz in the preseason about it.
Okay.
Is Danielle going to be on this season? A lot of people felt like she was. She was vehemently denying on Twitter.
She was. And no one, even people from our season, Rob, would believe her. She said, guys, I'm not going. And she would email or text somebody from our season, and they're like, nope, that was too short of a text message. Danny's not sending that. It must be someone from production who has her cell phone. And she called me and we would talk and we were joking about all this stuff. And it was Thursday night before the season began on maybe a Wednesday night, Big Brother 22. And we talked and who do you think will be on? And, I bet it's this person and that person. And she had received some calls from former house guests. So you knew there was some pre-gaming happening. So it was like, so that one seems like that person might be on it. And she just couldn't do it right now. Because of the timing for her life. I mean, she's a grandma these days, but she has a really great job in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it just didn't make sense personally for her, but it also didn't make sense financially because she's just in a good place and you don't want to lose that job. And I didn't get the call. I didn't get a call for Big Brother season 22. The first All Stars, whenever that was, I did get a call where they reach out. I heard Rob, you and Matt were talking about it, where it's sort of that email or that phone call, and it's like, "Hey, just check it in."
You were on the tier 2 email of 2006.
Checking in, yeah.
I
will say that one of the show executive producers, she was a producer back in the day on our season Big Brother 3, but consistently every year on my birthday, every year on my mom's birthday, every year on my dad's birthday, she sends an email and checks in. So it wouldn't have been strange if it had come from her, and now she's one of the executive producers, Sean Laws. It wouldn't have been a strange thing to have heard from Sean, but you get some random person who's like, I don't even know, in production, and what are you up to? And but I was just honored to get asked, and that would have been back in 2005, 6, somewhere in there. And I'd started in this TV news career that I'm doing now, and I was like, I just kind of landed on a career. I flip-flotted around for a good bit of time in my 20s, playing Big Brother, and then living out in LA doing reality show casting and all that, And so I was like, I got to get a real job.
Yeah.
And so because I was doing that, I said, this isn't a good time in life. And so I passed on it. And it would have been fun because Danielle showed up there, but she wouldn't tell me then that she was going to do All-Star. So we couldn't have even pre-gamed the Alliance. Now I know we would have walked in there and we'd have been rock solid, but Danny didn't tell me. And we were at Amy's wedding not long before. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. When the show came on, I was like, I was just with her. And but she takes those whatever they're, the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements, very seriously.
Takes it seriously.
There's a lot of money on the line if you
eyes open, mouth shut. That's how she does.
And that's how she plays this game too, and that's why she's so good. And why I love doing this podcast with her to talk about season 22, because she has some good insight.
Would you have played if they had asked you for season 22?
I can't do it. I got little kids. We're doing distance learning. It's like my hands are more full than they've ever been with life, and being a dad. It's like they made fun of Memphis. Like they're like this guy, like grandpa here. I'm 43 now. I played Big Brother at 25. That is your prime BB playing age, Most of our season was made up of people in their early to mid 20s. And you start getting people a little bit older. And like Danielle was a little bit older. And it's just a difficult game. And it's more difficult as you age. It's like, like a basketball player, like you're in your prime in that time, that's your NBA, and your career's over. You hit 30, it's done,
Yeah. Well, I know you must have the NBA on the mind because you are set up in Orlando.
Yeah, they're all here.
They're all
the teams are in the bubble.
But I feel like that we bounced around a lot. So let's just real quick that to catch people up who may not know, you are on the news in Orlando. Can you just catch the listeners up on what you do in your day job?
Yeah. So when right about the time the first All-Stars season happened, I had gotten a job to be a traffic reporter. And honestly, not winning Big Brother turned into a really good thing for me. So on season 3, Danielle and I made it to final 3. She made it to that second place chair. And then Lisa ended up winning our season. Spoilers, everybody, if you haven't come back on All Access to watch. But, I was like, this is terrible. This is crushing. That money would have done so much. It's life-changing. I could have done so many great things. But instead, I really needed to find a job and keep doing something that I knew. And I'd worked in production in Mobile, Alabama, where I grew up. And then, and so I got a job with casting, one of the executive producers who's not any longer on Big Brother, but he had a show and he needed somebody. And now looking back, it was just needed a warm body. But I had something unique in that I'd been on a reality show. So to convince someone else to go on a reality show, it was helpful, because somebody goes, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin my life. And what about this? And what about, I could answer those questions, where just somebody from production and somebody from the show, they can't help you. So that was good. And then I worked on, I think it was Amish in the City as casting. And so I think that's where John first hired me and sent me off to Missouri. And I spent 3 months there in Amish country trying to find some kids who would go live in a house in LA. Yeah, John Kroll. Yeah. I love John. And so I'm so thankful for John, because he got my foot in the door. And then I worked on some seasons of Survivor and working on an iPhone. I've got, notifications popping up. Survivor, An Amazing Race. I couldn't work on Big Brother. CBS always thought that was a conflict of interest. Sure.
Yeah.
And then did some other network stuff like.
So
Biggest
which
Loser
Survivor
for NBC.
seasons did you help cast?
Gosh, Rob, I could not tell you.
Do you remember any particular notable?
Parvati, no. I was working on Amazing Race the season. Maybe it was 7. And Parvati auditioned, and so I kind of helped get her on Survivor.
You found Parvati.
Well, no, we didn't find her, but she was one of our teams, and we loved her. And we were like, she's amazing, and she was there with her friend. And we were like, we love Parvati and her friend. And they were like, well, we don't really love the friend. And we're like, come back with your mom. And so, you're going to that hotel out in Santa Monica and doing callbacks. And it just so happened that all of the Amazing Race producers were in the hotel and the Survivor producers. So they were like, Mark Burnett and Jeff Probst are here. They didn't like all the combos for Amazing Race. And she really wanted to do Amazing Race. They're like, let's just get her in the room with the Survivor people. And they loved her. Done. She went on. And then, the rest is history for Parvati. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. But so then I did casting for all this time. And then Len over at CBS was like, hey, I think you should try to find something that's a real career, because you work and you get a cast for, let's say, Survivor, then they go to the island. And I didn't work in production, so I was done. And now I'm sending out my resumes and I'm trying to find my next gig. And she said, you would be either good at, and she could open a couple of doors, maybe doing something where you were creative for, get in a network and help do some creative stuff. At the time, they were trying to figure out product placement in television shows because they were terrified of what DVR would do and nobody would watch commercials. So it's like, how do you write into an episode of some show, a can of Coke or something? And so there was some of that creative stuff that was happening. And then the other thing was, she's like, you might be good at what my husband does. He's a reporter in LA.
Yeah. I was going to say, was that the connection?
Yeah. So Len Spillman and her husband, Eric Spillman, there at KTLA, opened the door. His buddy, who they had been reporters with back in forever, had moved up into management. And he was looking for just some kid to make no money and come in and be a traffic reporter. And so Eric opened the door. And at the time, I was close enough to Richmond that I was visiting some family out on the East Coast. And I drove down to Richmond and met. And he had watched Big Brother 3. And he was like, I know you're a nice guy. And he was like, I'll give you a job. And so I made, I couldn't even afford an apartment.
Right.
But I was like, I'm going to get into this thing. And I thank Eric and Len for that. And then I thank Matthew for opening up the door there at that TV station, because without Matthew Zelkine doing that, wouldn't have had that first job. And then I was like, I remember my first meeting with him, and don't ever do this, but I was like, I want to get to that anchor desk, and he was like, whoa, settle it down. We're paying you no money. You're the traffic reporter. Cool your jets. But over years time, I became a traffic reporter, and then became like the guy who would go out and report on traffic. So one day we had a tractor trailer overturn, and it had logs, and it spilled onto one road and then onto the highway and all this stuff. And I was out there, the guy on the street reporting, and he was like, hey, that was good. So then I became the morning show reporter. Mm-hmm. And so every morning I was out at a fire or a crime scene or wherever. And so I did that. And then I was like, I want to anchor. I want to get to the desk. That's where I want to be. And I kept pestering Matthew, and he finally said, okay, all right, I'll give you a chance. If there's ever an opening or somebody's sick, I'll call you in. And so I'd done some rehearsals, and I was kind of ready, but still, needed a lot more work. I was way too green for it. But somebody was sick, and it was my birthday. And so I was off that day, and he was like, do you want it? And I want it. And so I went in on my birthday and anchored. It was the first thing. And then I kept doing that. And then it led me to find a news agent, somebody to represent me. And then thank goodness I found Kenny, who's out in LA, and Kenny represents me now. And so he helped open the door to move to Orlando. And I've been here 11 years this month. So I'm celebrating my 11th year as the morning show news anchor. So that was a really long version of what could have been a short story, guys.
No, it was great to get the catch up, because I think a lot of people don't know what you've been up to, and congratulations on all your success. Yes.
Don't miss a season of Big Brother. And that's where we came up with the podcast thing, is Danny and I get on the phone and we're like, oh, that was a boneheaded move. Why did they do that? Or, oh, this isn't going well for the people that we're rooting for right now. And we would talk this strategy, and my brother was always jealous, and he still lives in Alabama. And so, he would hear these talks, and I was like, well, Danny thinks this and that. And she sometimes would have a little bit of insight from something she read on the web. And so this year, Josh was like, this would be the perfect time. And people won't believe that she's not on the show. So just put a podcast together, talk about what you want to talk about, and let people know she's not on the show. And then because people wouldn't even believe it, like we still had a little bit of fun. And I feel like for the first week or two, like people still were like, oh, she's just in a hotel in LA and then she's going to pop into the house. It's like, no, guys, really, she said no. And we're just letting you into our conversations that we have because they're funny. And Danny's really funny. And I mean, this is someone I love, a great friend, and has been for all of these years and been through life's ups and downs. And I'm blessed to have her as a friend. And so it's just like, let's do this. Let people in our world.
It's such a great dynamic that the fans are able to listen in on between the relationship that so many of us have been able to track over these 18 years of you two knowing each other. And you two are different people, but you've always had this amazing connection and friendship that we're able to, hear what you guys have to say and go back and forth. So I think that the fans are very, very lucky that you two have decided to start this at this particular time.
Well, good. And we want to give them a little something because Danny and I are not in the place to play Big Brother. I couldn't take off more than a week. I couldn't take off weeks in a row and let alone longer than that. And, my job is my first priority. And I, again, feel so lucky to have this. And I've had a lot of success with it. And so, it's not something to jeopardize. But it's fun to sort of woulda, coulda, shoulda because the game is so fun. And this season, I had so many high hopes for it. And, Taryn, some things have been boring this season. It's about to get good though, right, Taryn?
This
is going to be a good week.
Right? Yeah. But I think it's great. I did a podcast on the development of alliance structure in Big Brother and you and Danielle.
I need to listen to that. That's like every contestant that's 101 for them, right? Before they move into the house.
But you and Danielle really were pioneers, and you named the alliance the Secret Alliance, but that really was like the start of what has been built upon over the years, and now we're seeing it in such dominant fashion on an All-Stars season that it is kind of making the season a little boring for some people.
Yeah. Well, because you have such a huge group, and they are powerful people who can win comps, and they're just going to dominate until they have to turn on each other.
Yeah. But you guys were really like the pioneers, I think, of cool. So much.
Yeah. That's so, cool. All right. So, Jason, you and Danielle started an alliance. And hey, let's keep it a secret. But now, every single person in the house thinks they're in an alliance. They're a secret, and some are real and some are fake.
Yeah.
Do you think is the antidote for somebody to come out with a public alliance?
Well, no. That's what happens with showmances. That's what's happening.
But you need more than two people, maybe.
Well, and maybe that I don't know, Rob. I mean, it is something that nobody's done. So let's try it. I mean, anything could work. But I think the concept of Big Brother is there's always the need to find someone who can be your target. And if you one of the things, and Taryn, I was listening to you and Puya talk that Nicole does is she needs to vilify somebody so that she can feel okay that week targeting them. And so if someone comes out in this big alliance, Robin, they go, yeah, we're the 4 or we're the 6, then I don't know. I think everybody goes, we got to take somebody out from them. Now, game-wise, it would be amazing. And what I would love to see, like if I'm dreaming and I'm the producer of All-Stars 3, I'm going to, and maybe it's random draw or maybe it's a competition or something, though, I'm going to figure out a way to break up all of these pre-game alliances because we've heard talk on the feeds. People came in already paired up. They knew, and it's hard having relationships already because if you would put Danielle and you put me into a house, we're going to be a duo. Like it doesn't matter. We're going to be working together. But if you could figure out some way with they come in and it's like Survivor where you go, you're on this team and you're on this team for the first half of the game, then things would have changed up. I think we wouldn't have been able to see this super dominant alliance form because it would have been, while beneficial for some of those guys that pre-gamed to keep some others, it would have been very hard for them to do that because people would see something happening. So I don't know. I don't know if Big Brother, if they do All-Stars ever again, can do it in the exact same way because of what pre-game did for this season.
Well, let me pitch something for you and Danielle. If you ever do play again, you come in and you say, we hate each other. We haven't.
No one would
We
believe
had a
it.
big falling out over the podcast. She wanted exclusive rights. This is, and then you have a secret alliance all over again, right?
And that would be amazing. But I don't think people would buy it. I don't think people would buy it. I don't know. I did love seeing, because Danny and I never really played cards, but we would sit right by the bathroom and just put cards down and pretend to play. And it was sort of, oh, this is wonderful to see when the other day, Christmas and Tyler, I think we're doing that, or somebody in the HOH with backgammon. They're like, doesn't matter, just move some pieces around in case somebody walks in. And that's a really great moment to have. Now, I was like, just game wise, like I was real sad this week. I didn't love things that happened. I wanted better, from this. And Christmas was in a tough spot. I will give her that. But man, it just didn't play out well at all. It didn't go well. It didn't go well. And I think this really hurt Christmas's game because of the blow-ups. And Da'Vonne is going to make it appear, oh, I'm with you, Christmas. I'm here. I got you. But what she's telling us in the diary room is, like the first chance that she can take her out, she's going to. And so I don't know if Christmas will really believe her, or if she hopefully, sleeps with one eye open if she wants to play a good game. But I think this in some ways sealed Christmas's fate in the game, because she's still going to be a bigger target than so many others because of the blow-ups and the things that happened this past week. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Do you think that Christmas is going to be a person who potentially she's not going anywhere, but are people in sort of like looking at her as potentially somebody, oh, I have to worry about her, she has a lot of good relationships, as being somebody who now is the person like, oh, I would love to sit next to Christmas in the final two?
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to sit next to Christmas in the final two. And maybe they think they can beat her talking to the jury, and they can say, oh, we're going to be able to sway what happened this week. I don't know. But I think that Christmas is dangerous to bring along farther, because she is such a competition beast. And she proved it. She won the HOH this week, and she won the Power of Veto. So she can take it up and fire it up. And competitions are what, in the end, will get you pretty far. And that final HOH competition is where I lost it. Like, I never ended up on the block season 3. Danny didn't end up on the block. Like, we worked really hard to make sure that never happened. So as much game and strategy, but then it came down to a competition, and I lost the first round of the competition, and then I lost the third round of the competition, and it's over. That was the game. And so I think Christmas is tough because of that with competitions. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't think they want to have her sitting there, and I think they're gonna turn on her first, as they have to cannibalize their alliance. And I think the hard thing to figure out is which alliance is real and which isn't. And I love the maps and the charts and the stuff that everybody has built on Twitter, and they're beautiful, and because it's helpful even for me to figure out what is happening, because I think Danny, when she slipped up and walked into the HOH and mentioned in front of Nicole F. to something to Tyler about, some of these people are talking and they shouldn't. And Tyler was panicked that Nicole F. might be but Danny, I think, just let her guard down. She's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm in an alliance with Nicole F. And then went, oh shoot, I said something in front of, I shouldn't have said that because of Tyler, and that's a different alliance. It's so confusing. I don't know how anybody's keeping up with it in the house right now. But what I do know is that some of them are real. And so I know Cody and Nicole, that seems real. I think Danny and Nicole F. those are real. And so that love triangle, as Kaser called it, like that's something to watch. Those three are really bonded. And I think they're going to stick with each other as long as they can.
Yeah. I think it's all very. I thought that Kaser put it a good way on the interview that you and Danielle did with him on the last episode of Secret Alliance. That he talked about it is like a very incestuous thing in a figurative sense, where it's like the same 6 or 7 people have 9 different configurations of alliances, and it is very confusing to remember, oh wait, okay, this person is in that fake alliance and this person's not in that fake alliance, and they didn't know about that fake alliance. So okay, and it's so many overlapping combinations of the same people.
Yeah. Incestuous is the right word for these alliances, because you can't even keep it straight, and they can't keep it straight. That's what we saw with Danny slipping. Is she went, oh, I am in alliances with both of these people, but just different ones. Ooh. And so Tyler was freaking out, not knowing that didn't matter at all to Nicole F, because she already knew about that one because Danny told her about that one, but that was a different one than Danny and Nicole were in. It's it's fun, but it's also like the most confusing season of Big Brother with alliances, I think. And maybe I'm wrong. Taryn, what do you say? Have we seen this confusing an alliance structure before?
I don't think so. I think I really do think this is a further evolution of what we're seeing. And I don't know if it's quite as effective as what we saw that Cody and Derek do in 16, which I really feel like is the pinnacle of like alliance structure.
And that's what they're trying to do, it seems.
Yeah.
Taryn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like he was trying to sort of make a Venn diagram where instead of having like one big circle with circles like in the middle, like an onion, he was trying to, like Ian said, he was making an octopus with tentacles that are, I guess, like misformed and like intertwined and like attacking each other. But I think it's working very well. But I think it's definitely been aided by the fact that they've won all the competitions.
Yeah,
because
it's worked for the committee because they have won. They've kept the power.
There have been so many opportunities where other people outside of the power structure have come so close to winning a competition and might have broken the whole thing wide open, but it just hasn't quite happened yet.
No, and it's frustrating as a viewer because I want to see some really good game. Now, this week was so dramatic. There was so much happening, and I mean, Danny and I feel like both were just like emotional wrecks from this. I don't know how invested you guys get in this season, but it brought me to tears. Like I was emotional on Big Brother 3, and I remember getting the eviction night speech from Julie, and I was like, I'm not crying, Julie. Like she was working it, she was trying to get I was like, I've cried enough in that house. I'm out now. It's back to real life. And then my parents showed up, and and so other than the season and what being in that house does to you, where you're just an emotional wreck, I normally watch the show and I'll be like, oh, that's disappointing, or that's unfortunate, and I don't feel as vested. But I've watched this season, and especially Wednesday night's episode, and then even on Thursday night, and cried. Like I'm sitting at home going, why is this moving me so much? And I don't know. Kudos to the producers for pulling on our heartstrings, and we saw the emotional roller coaster of Day and Bay, and then in the mix, Cody learned his grandfather passed away, and so I'm already crying, and then that happened, and you're just a wreck. And then, it was brilliant as far as producing a television show goes. It didn't really change anything game wise, but it was some good TV this week, and I feel for the people in the house because I know what an emotional week that can be, because it's tough, and I don't think we had anything compared to that on season 3. So kudos to them, because this All Stars edition is a draining game, really draining.
Yeah, you did have a big moment. I think one of the most famous moments of the entire show.
You should have used the veto.
You should have used it. That must have been emotional, right?
It was, and honestly, it was the hardest game move that we made. I think I thought I lost the game the week Roddy and I had made an agreement right before, it was after eviction and right before the HOH competition. And sometimes that would be a matter of just minutes, in a commercial break, and then you do a live HOH competition. But Roddy cornered me and he was like, hey, you're not going to put me up this week if you win HOH. And I was like, okay. And then he said, he said, I won't put you up if I win HOH. Will you do the same? It was kind of that, And I said, okay. And what I didn't realize until later is Roddy was doing that to a lot of people. It was brilliant game. And so that week, because I had given him my word, I didn't. And I thought, I've lost the game. And not only for me, but for Danielle. And so it was so emotional. And finally, we managed to get him out later on in the game. But not that week when I had given him my word. But Marcellus was just like a great alliance member and a great friend in the game. And it was hard to just sort of go, you're done. And Danielle had done everything that week to make him feel secure. From Amy would cut our hair. So, in the Big Brother house, you're there for 3 months. You don't have a barber appointment that you can go to. People still
we
don't
can
get
relate, Jason.
Yeah, I know. It was the pandemic. It was like, bring it on. I'm ready for this. I've done this. Come on. You locked me in the house for 3 months. I'm in. I got this. But so Amy would cut our hair. And so Danielle said, okay, well, Amy, I need you to cut Jason's hair. And does anybody else need a haircut? And made it seem like because she's going Thursday night. And so Amy and Marcellus were on the block. And was like, Amy, you haven't packed up everything. Make sure your bag is packed. And Danny was just on it. And those little details that would ensure no one was suspecting anything other than Amy's going out. And even, Marcellus had asked, like, should I pack my bag? And Danny's like, we got you, and all of that kind of stuff that she worked. And I just remember thinking, like, I feel horrible. And I couldn't almost get the words out. Like the speech, when I watch it back, I'm like, it was too long, Jason. Just should have said, you should have used the veto. I vote to evict you, Marcellus. And I still, like, I've apologized on the Secret Alliance podcast. Danny just gave me Marcellus's number because I've seen the guy post the show, but I still I feel like the need to constantly say, hey man, I am sorry.
Hey, for Jason, all you needed to say was, Marcellus, you told us Amy is your untouchable.
Oh, the untouchables.
Personal game information.
That was personal game information.
Personal game information. You said she was your untouchable, and I had to. Yeah. And I, man, the untouchable thing this season is just out of control. But and I still don't know. I still don't know really who Cody's untouchable is. I believe it to be Nicole F. Nicole F's untouchable. I think it's Cody, but I also don't know if it's Danny. So Nicole F is in a really good spot with that. Like, who is your untouchable? And that's what's even confusing as viewers. And we watch the live feed.
Christmas needs to ask everybody.
Yeah. Who's your untouchable?
Mm-hmm.
and I can't even figure out if really she and Tyler are really untouchables, or if Tyler just gave lip service to Christmas because she was HOH that week. I just don't know. I really don't know.
Well, I do think so. So they have had a secret final two in place, from
it was
the jump.
early.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that they had pre-gamed a bit because they had planned on working with Josh and Casey, who were each of their number ones, and then both of them end up not on the cast.
They weren't on it.
So then they were like, well, we've just got each other now.
Okay.
So yeah, they've been working together for a while.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing that's tough sometimes with the show. And even though I watch the feeds, I was telling Taryn before we got started here that there are times you tune it in and you're like, oh, this is going to be some great game, and they're in the kitchen cooking, or they're working out, or just there's like 10 minutes of silence because they're just sitting around, they're doing nothing. And there's a lot of that in Big Brother. And I mean, Rob, I can't imagine that it's much different on Survivor, even though it's a shortened timeline. It's still there's a lot of downtime. And when you're not eating, all I would want to do is sleep, right? Is that what happens?
Survivor is very boring in the downtime. I would think that Big Brother is probably more exciting to watch than what's going on around the Survivor camp. It's very boring.
Okay, because there are days where you could tune into those live feeds, and from the moment that the house guests wake up until bedtime, you tune in and it's like there's nothing going on that particular day. Now it does start picking up as the game sort of ramps up here, and I feel like this little stretch that we're in will be exciting for people watching the feeds. And then the thing that happens at the end is we just sleep a lot. So once you get down to the final final four, there were a couple of times they would tell us, they said, we're going to wake you guys up at 9 a.m. And I'm sure that we went to bed not long after the sun went down. So we were sleeping 12 hours or something. And I think I heard someone say that toward the end, somebody like Amy or someone slept 19 hours. And I don't know why we're exhausted. We're stuck in that house, but I think the mental exhaustion of the game, and by the time you get to the end, you're just wiped.
Well, they talked about this actually, the All-Stars, because Janelle especially, they talked about I was used to being able to sleep all the time in the Big Brother house. Janelle was like, I thought I was going to get there and catch up on sleep, but they actually don't let you nap very often anymore.
Okay.
They will wake you up. They will say, no, get up. They wake you up very
like
early.
Having babies, no sleeping during the day.
No,
they're very sleep deprived in there. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing of thinking, like, if I were to go back now at 43, this is not the age for that. Like I need my sleep, and I get up really early in the morning. I'm up at 3:00. I'm on the news, by 5 a.m. and then work until the noon show's over at 1. But I need my sleep. I have a baby bedtime. My kids are negotiating. I've got a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, and they're negotiating like, can I? One made a PowerPoint of like why her bedtime should be moved later, and I was like, no, not now, because Dad needs sleep.
I respect the hustle, though.
Oh no, you gotta respect it. Like she is serious, man. She is. She wants it, so she's put the PowerPoint. Like here are all the reasons why. Like future attorney in the mix. Like she makes a compelling argument. But yeah, I'm not allowing it. So trying to be in that game, like I couldn't imagine in All Stars being now, 18 years older, almost 2 decades having passed, and trying to stay up with kids, these young 20 somethings, and then also get up early because I'm sure that's what my body clock would do, and then and try to follow the game, and I don't know. In my season, Danny and I both said we want to be the last to go to bed and the first to get up, so you can monitor everything all day long. And I could do it then. I could make that happen when I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
Jason, could you talk a little bit about, I'm sure you saw all of the tweets and memes about the differences between old school Big Brother and all the things that, didn't happen because just for Tyler to call old school Big Brother boring.
New school is boring.
New school is boring, right?
I will argue that this is the boring way to play the game. It is safe. It is really good for getting you and your buddies a long way in the game, and they've proved that. It is a good model for surviving in the Big Brother game. But as far as game goes, it's real boring to watch. It's not exciting. It's not compelling. When you see someone win HOH that's part of that huge alliance, you know how the week is going to play out. And maybe someone saves themselves with veto, but it's going to be another person that's not inside that alliance. Like nothing real big will shake it up. So the old school versus new school is playing versus create a big alliance to coast till 2/3 of the game ends, and then you go and come after each other. Old school was, you have to be reactive week to week. And as things happen, you may need to make a move. And Danielle and I were really good with doing that. And the way that she sees some of the things that happen in the game, it's scary because it was so good. And she would go, hey, I know that our target had been this person this week, but I think that we need to adjust and we need to go after this particular contestant because they're coming after you, Jason, and they don't know by telling, Danielle would go, they told me, but they don't know that we're aligned. And then you adjust. And one thing that the Secret Alliance did as Danielle and I played Big Brother 3 is I was kind of aligned with one group. And so I was with them, and Danny was with that other group. And we would come meet in the middle and we'd pretend to play cards and share all their secrets. And this is what's happening and that's what's happening. And so Danielle would throw a hanky vote and really cause some drama, and it would work in favor of what we were trying to do that next week, and it would cast some doubt on a certain person. And so it just made it, I felt like, a lot more exciting to watch and to follow. But it's not the safest game because Janelle and Kaser came in and they played the old school way, and they couldn't get anybody to align with them because that big group that formed with a couple of power players, maybe before day one, but essentially they made that discussion early on, day 1, day 2, and they said, hey, we're this group here, let's come up with our name, and then it's done, and everybody else is locked out as long as they keep some power, and they've made it through. What are we at, 5 evictions now? They've controlled this house. They have controlled this game.
Yeah. Why didn't you guys ever name the alliance?
I don't know. We didn't. I mean, it's now. It's
was that even ridiculous. A thing yet?
No.
Chilltown top in season 2. They were names.
I guess they called themselves Chilltown. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Or was that all? That was the first All Stars when they named themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was season 2. They were Chilltown because they were in the chili room.
I don't know because I watched from season 1, and I remember even my little brother, who kind of talked Danny and me into doing the podcast this summer. He was like, "There's this new show. It's called Big Brother. They have it's just so weird to look at this reality show and what it looks like because the cameras like pan and truck and move." He's like, it looks like cinematic with the production, but I think they're in a house and I don't know. And we were intrigued. And so we watched season 1, 2000. And then 2001 came out and I watched Dr. Will, I mean, brilliantly control that house. And so they named it Chilltown. I couldn't remember that. And then I was a fan. And so the CBS affiliate in my hometown in Mobile was doing Big Brother auditions. And my friend told me about it. She was like, you totally get on that. And I went and did an audition. And made it on. And I guess I wasn't thinking, like, what's the protocol? Do we need to name this alliance? But here's the thing that's also kind of amazing about this alliance Danny and I had is even the producers didn't care about it. Like, they would come in night 1 and they were like, hey, tell us about the game. How's it going so far? Do you think there are any alliances? I was like, I don't know. I'm not in any, And then day 2, I was like, no alliances. I don't know. And they'd ask you, you think there are any alliances? And so Danielle and I were sitting in the hammock and it was end of day 2, maybe day 3. And we kind of compared notes. It's like, they keep asking us about alliances. And I was like, Danny, I'm not in one. And she was like, I'm not in one. I was like, maybe we should make one. Like, it was out of necessity, because if they're asking us about alliances, my assumption is there are alliances and I'm not in them. So we made it. And then we were like, diary room. And we're like, hey guys, I got an alliance. I'm in an alliance with Danielle, Danielle Reyes. Yeah, we're in an alliance. And they're like, fine. What about this player? And we're like, no, seriously. And it was weeks. Like, we would tell them, we were like, so Danny and I are, and they're like, no. And they just didn't care. And so I think we didn't even think to name it because we were like, it's so under the radar. Like, nobody even knows. And, and Danny and I did not spend a lot of time together day in and day out if it wasn't with the big group. It was just like once a day to play cards. And then that's how we compared notes, because you can very easily see, just watching the feeds, who likes the other players, because they hang out and they're this group, and it's really obvious who is working together. I think most of the times as I watch it. And so Danny and I did that as a very unique thing, where it was really hard because we didn't have a lot of time to catch up day in and day out, because we weren't together all the time and just could whisper something here or there. But we figured out a way to do it and to work it. And that was good. But we didn't have the foresight to name it. But we both had watched season 2 and thought it was brilliant game from Dr. Will. And I mean, still to this day, players try to emulate what he did with being a puppet master. But the old school game was a little more dangerous. And I like that. And I think that makes the game more exciting. And I think we would have to have more of the old school play if on an all-star season, everybody's put into teams, and not an old school versus new school, because then you would have the new school kids, I think, just picking people off. But if you figured out some way, and maybe it's just random draw, you pull a chip out of a bag, and then these first 5 are part of it. It's kind of how they walk everybody in the house. That's a random draw, we're told. And so they pick those groups that go into the house at the beginning of each Big Brother season. So something like that. And you say, okay, the first in that first group of 8, you guys are working together. And if someone from your group goes, then you all have slop that week, you all this and that. And the 2 nominees will come out of your group if you lose some sort of competition. And I think it would create a different kind of dynamic. And then people would go, I've got to figure out some way to create a secret alliance with someone on the other side so that we can work together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it could be interesting. I don't know if I've answered any of the old school, new school stuff, or why we didn't name the alliance. We just didn't think anybody cared about it.
I like that idea a lot. I don't think it needs to only be for a returning player season. Okay. I think that we've talked about, like, just 16 people is a big part of what's going on. Where you have so many people that are in the alliance, that the groups that are not in power, maybe they could get 3 or 4 people together, but it's never enough to tip the balance of power. If you had either 2 groups of 8 and only 8 people voted in the first week, and then the other 8 people voted in the second week, I think that would go a long way to sort of like help cracking like these like 9 and 10 person alliances.
Yes, I think Rob, that's a brilliant idea, and one I'd like to see if we ever get an All Stars season 3. And I knew this season would be that setup just from the start of all of this, because when we started going, like, are they going to be able to pull off Big Brother? That talk in February and March, and you would see some of the casting people tweeting and posting about it. And it's like, they're looking for contestants. It's like, but we're just right here ramping up in the coronavirus pandemic. And so I just, I remember all of that. And I was like, I bet they pull off All Stars, because to do the casting process, you can't just do it on Zoom. Like, you got to have people in that room to know the energy that they give and sort of how they're going to react when someone makes them mad. And sometimes they'll do that. They'll bring in the executives and they'll ask a question to like really annoy somebody. And they want to see, like, are you going to be the villain? Like, are you going to snap at them, or are you the nice guy and you're going to play it cool? And so, they'll push them a little bit in that. And it's hard to do that on Zoom. And so I thought, this is a brilliant opportunity for CBS to do this, to call people back for an all-star season. And so, I had been sort of envisioning that was the thing. And then, eventually Danny and I kept talking, and I was like, I know it's going to be an all-star season. I know it's going to be an all-star season. And then she was free to say after the fact that she was like, I'm not doing it, but hey, I did get a call. And I was like, I knew it.
You mentioned the diary room. I think your season in particular is very famous for, like Josh laying upside down with a lizard in the diary room, just kind of like being able to like speak your mind. And nowadays it's a lot more stilted and scripted. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Kaser said what he realized when we did the exit interview with him on the Secret Alliance podcast, that Kaser said, I see that there are a lot of people, and I didn't know this, that they're playing it for the gram. So it's for increased followers on social media. And so they're still playing a game where it's like, I want to do things to make America like me and all the stuff. So they're not sort of
with mixed results.
Yeah, with mixed results, right. And so when you come into the diary room and you go, this has been the worst day of my game. Here's what happened, this, that, and the other. And you really let it out. There's good television in that. And then you also, I think, become endearing to America because you're letting them in. Everybody else may still be filtered and guarded trying to play that game. Like, I feel like for about 2 weeks was it for me for trying to play that. It's like, and then the cameras sort of fade away. You never forget, because if you start having a good conversation and you hear that robotic camera on the wall and pan on, zoom in on over you, there's some good juicy game stuff happening. Like, it got interesting. They care. But the diary room, I felt like, was therapy, where I could go in there and I could sort of tell them everything that was happening and vent it, and, sometimes shed a tear, and, and occasionally I feel like there was some intel to gain. So I tried to do that, where I listened to what they might ask about questions, and not only what was a storyline on the show, because let's say Josh had been hanging out with the lizard. You brought it up, and he had brought it in the diary room and all these things. It's like, if they ask me about Josh and the lizard, I go, oh, they're going to do some funny bit on the show. But I'd come from TV production, so I had that savvy knowledge of it. And I was like, they're going to do some bit on the show, a little piece about Josh and the lizard, and it's like, maybe they talk about the relationships that are forming, and then him being, in love with the lizard, or something, like whatever. And so I knew there was stuff like that to figure out. And there would be times where I was telling them about my game, and it felt like they weren't interested. And it was like, I guess they're still not. And like Danielle and I thought for weeks that they weren't interested in our alliance because they didn't see that we were doing things behind the scenes. They were like, oh, you're not the big power alliance like Roddy and Eric and Lisa and Kiara. Those four are dominant. And then they're later like, what's happening? You two talk every night, and then you're never surprised with stuff that's going on. We're like, because we're secretly trying to run things around here. Not always able to make it happen in our favor, but could get in the mix and at least be a disruptor some. And that was always good. And I think too, when you have a huge alliance, it always gets in the way at some point where you go, like, there is someone we can cut loose right now, and they're playing a game that's going to be dangerous to my game. And if you're in an alliance with them, then you lose that jury vote, and it really wrecks things for your game. So I think even right now, there's still like, if they want, like, if can we talk about who's HOH right now?
Yeah, right.
Is that
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. I don't want to ruin it.
Okay.
But with Danny winning the HOH, she is going to go with that alliance, it seems. But this is the perfect opportunity for Danny to make some type of move and go, you know what? I'm not beating Cody. I'm not beating Tyler. I'm not beating probably Memphis, maybe in a competition, but, and go, I could really target some power player here and make good for my whatever it is with.
But somebody's going to be upset. Somebody might not like that nomination.
No, and that's part of the old school, new school is you got to go with the house. And I asked Janelle, I asked Kaser, I'm like, what's the house? What's this thing that they talk about now? And Bailey even said at one point in time, she said, I think to Janelle and Taryn, because you're like, the wiki of you're the Wikipedia of
the
TV
Oracle
and everything that happens on the live feed. Just go through the Rolodex. I think Bailey said to Janelle early on, like, oh no, it's like a rule where you vote with the House. And it's like, no, it's not a rule. Like, you're just ruining your game. And now
she was born of Big Brother 20.
Yeah, I know. But
these players don't know any other world.
I know. They got to give them, some early seasons. Give them 2 and 3 when they're in sequester and let them watch.
In fairness, Big Brother 20 was
it's funny that Bailey is the one to say that, because Big Brother 20, more so than almost any season ever, was a season of not voting how the HOH wanted you to vote.
I mean, I guess, but yeah, you're right. Okay. But it's I don't know. It just gets frustrating when you do it. And I will say, sometimes, Taryn, I need a fact checker like you, though, because I said something to Janelle. I was like, this whole thing, like, Fennell's, like, what's that? And she's like, it's been around since forever. And I was like, oh, where was I? Like, I watch every season, but I think they become a blur. Does it ever feel like that, Rob, with Survivor, where you go like, wait, which season was that where the thing with
Jason, my whole life is like that.
Okay. I know. I can't remember what I wore yesterday to work. So like remembering 2 seasons ago, 10 seasons ago. Yeah. It's like, wait, and somebody will joke back about something that happened on season 3. And they go, oh my gosh, that was so funny when so-and-so did this, or this moment happened. And I go, I really need to go back and look. Like, I don't remember that happening. Because they do blend together, but I will never forget. I mean, season 1 and 2, because I loved the show, even as it was sort of evolving. And I'm proud to have been a part of season 3, because we helped further change the game, because people were truthful in the diary room. They were honest.
Hold on, Jason. We lost your audio for a second here.
Okay, we lost me for a second. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
But the diary room, sorry guys for dropping away. A little notification popped up. That's working on an iPhone.
You're good.
But the diary room is what cost Danielle the game, because she went in there and she was totally honest, and she said what she was feeling, when it was good, when it was bad. She talked about players, maybe at times a little smack. And so now I think, when she came back for the All-Stars first season, and Danielle wasn't going to ever do anything that might somebody take personally. It was all game. But the diary room was the thing that people could go home and they could see, and then they were still part of the jury. And so if you said something that hurt their feelings, they were not going to vote in favor of you. And that's why the vote for Danny was, my single vote for her, and everybody else against her.
Still hurts.
Yeah,
it does. But the next season 4, you're welcome. They changed it. The jury would be sequestered, so they never saw diary rooms. They could hear what was happening in the house, but they only knew of what was going on in the house. And I think that was amazing. So we feel good that we made a little BB history, that we made a change in the game. But season 1, I loved America voting. I thought that's cool. Like, maybe this season would have been better if America had done that. Like, the players nominate some people, and then America votes, because maybe we would have seen something shake up, and then people go, oh, what's happening with this? I don't know. I want some America involvement, and I know they're going to give us some decision, but or maybe not. But I need to be involved more in this game. An America's player or something.
So I just think to take everything that we're talking about and just bring it all together. It's interesting that you talk about. So Danielle was in the diary room, so honest and open with the audience, and I think that that's one of the reasons why people like you and people like Danny still have this connection with the audience 18 years after you originally played. Dr. Will, same thing. Where and I've talked about this with Boston Rob also, where the people that bring the audience in and talking about what they're doing, that you make a connection with them, and we don't forget that over time. So then the show wanted people to still be able to speak freely in the diary room. So we said, okay, we're going to sequester the jury, and then the show works for a long period of time. But to bring it back to what Kaser was talking about, people who are playing for the gram, if you are ultimately with your end goal in mind is not so much telling the story of the season, but more of want to appeal to the people who are going to ultimately follow me on the Instagram, that they may not think that authenticity is what they want, that the just sort of like ultimate good guy, I don't say anything that is can be, you know, controversial in the diary room, or anything interesting, I'm just going to go ahead and do the can line and play for the punishments and try to do anything I can to sort of just get the airtime as sort of like the good guy on the show.
Yeah. No, Rob, I think you're right, and I think the word is authenticity, and that's what people really like and want to see. And when we get those glimpses of that, whether it's right after some blow up or some fight, or Cody going into the diary room this week and finding out, you know, his family wrote him a letter and said your grandfather died, like that's real. And that's why we watch reality television. We can watch scripted shows where people do stuff that we think we want to see them do. That's what writers are for, and why we watch those shows. But reality is just like, we gotta just be authentic and be who you are. And I will say that's one of the things that's kind of endearing about Enzo is he's like, he feels very unfiltered, and you know, he's like, bro, yo, you know, the Enzo language.
That's it, yo.
That's yo, this bro. We gotta, I don't know, yo. It's just like if you put bro and yo in front of everything, then you're doing the language. And
did Roddy invent Enzo with his character Uncle Vito from Big Brother 3, who ultimately appeared on the show this season?
It was very close. Yeah, he was onto something. And maybe that the deal was they were just always trying to cast like people who worked on season 3. You know, they were like, this would be the character that we need on the show, and then they they found him in real life in Enzo. I don't know, but he's a character, and he's still, though, even though he's kind of larger than life, he feels very real, and it's very grounded in authenticity of who he is. And so like you believe it and you buy it. It's not this act to be liked by America. And that is really, I think that's really tough is now people are savvy enough to know what social media likes and wants, and they try to play to that. And I don't want that, you know. It's like just be you know, and even if you come out as a villain, we're still going to appreciate that because you were a villain, you know. And it's like, I think, you know, some scenes of Danny Donato right now, we're seeing a little bit of like, you know, her dad, and I know they don't have a good relationship, but like Evil Dick, like people like him, even though they kind of didn't like, you know, it's like you love to hate him kind of a thing, but he was great at the game, and he sort of was real, you know. And I mean, I don't know. I like the guy. I watched the season. It was like, oh, I can't believe he pulled that off. How did he get away with that? And then I've met him because he's here in the Central Florida area. And, you know, it's like, it's just who he is. And he didn't put any kind of filter in there, you know. I don't know. I think the authenticity is lacking sometimes when people are trying to play for the gram.
Yeah, it's the influencer mindset of like, this is what I think you want to see, so I'm going to give you this instead of like how things actually are.
Yeah.
Jason, could you give us...
I'm not smart enough to know what people really want.
And neither are they. Neither are they. They don't know what people want.
No, and so if you were just you and you're real, people are going to I feel like, buy into you because you're real and you're you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jason, could you give us some updates on some Big Brother 3 people? I know the fans look at especially these classic seasons as sort of like as like extended family, or at least people we went to high school with. Can you give us any updates on people that you've been in touch with over the years?
For sure, Amy is doing great. Danielle and I were at Amy's wedding, and again, it was right before Danny went into the BB house for season 1 of All Stars and didn't tell us. And I believe Amy was in the mix for all of that, but because she didn't think she was going to know anybody, she was like, "No, I'm not going to do this." And so later she said to Danny, like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And Danny's like, "I couldn't. We signed that form that's scary and says a lot of money. If you tell." And so, of course, keep up with Amy and Danielle. Danielle and Amy we're all the time texting. We check in. And Amy was the biggest Big Brother 3 contestant to contact me and go, I know Danny's going into that house. She keeps sending me these really short text messages. They're almost cryptic. I was like, Amy, Danny
This is from
busy.
2020, not 2006? Yes.
Yes. Okay. No, this is this season. Like 2 months ago. And I was like, Amy, Danny's not going back for round 2 of All Stars. Like, stop. And we knew at some point, like, they were sequestered. We knew All Stars was happening. We heard, CBS had told us that. Like, and she's like, I know, even though she texted me back today. And I was like, Amy. And so us doing the podcast was like, maybe this will let Amy know that you're not in the Big Brother house or are a part of season 22.
Will Amy be on the podcast soon?
Yes, we had her one of our early episodes. So go back through the archives. We had Amy come on and chat with her. We spent it was a Saturday night. Got the kids in bed, and they still were like, "You were so loud that night. You were so loud." But it was like this little mini reunion of the three of us, and so we had a blast and shared it. And then, or maybe it was a Friday night, but it was it was like 8 or 9 o'clock for us, and and I was like, we had a party. And then I've talked to Lisa this season. I asked her, maybe go on the show. I know she's busy. Just checking in and making sure she's doing well. And she's had a lot of health things and stuff. And so just sending a lot of love and thoughts and prayers Lisa's way. She's amazing. And, at the end of the day, when like Danny and I didn't win it, it's like she was a good person to win that season. We feel like we did a lot of legwork and then didn't end up winning it. And you're kind of like, ugh, it's like you put that big contract together and, with some job or something, and then somebody swoops in at the end and they steal the contract that you put all together. But I don't have any hard feelings. And again, I mean, you heard me say earlier in this how I ended up where I am today. I needed to lose that season. That's crazy. But I wouldn't have started working hard because I would have been like, well, I got this nest egg, so I can just play in Los Angeles.
Jason,
and then I wouldn't have figured out a path. Yeah, Rob,
yeah.
you're like it would have been nice.
Well, Jason, can I ask you a game-related question then about season 3? That you guys had the option to evict either Amy or Lisa, and you chose to evict Amy. Can you explain the decision?
I will. And we talked about it when Taryn, when we interviewed Amy, because she was like, "Why didn't you?" And I'll play that game occasionally, and I try not to because life turned out really, really, really good for me. I'm very blessed. I'm so thankful and grateful for where I am today, 18 years later. And that was just a blip on the radar of not winning that. Like, yes, that's life-changing money. That is life-changing money. But because it didn't happen, it caused me to hustle a little bit. And so then I had more hunger for what I'm, where I ended up today, and I'm more appreciative for it. But Amy and Lisa were there, and it's like, who do you get rid of? Who do you get rid of? Lisa ultimately went on to win it, but Amy had a couple of strikes against her. She had been evicted previously, spent a month in Mexico chilling out on a beach, and then they had the competition to win your way back in. So it was one of those. So we were already, holding some sour grapes. We were like, wait a minute. So tell me again what you did while you were in Mexico. Oh, right. And was that the same day that you got surf lessons? Okay, right. Oh, and then okay, I don't think she got surf lessons, but so we were like, you haven't been in the game. Like, you got evicted. So we're like, we can't let Amy win it. Also, Amy was really good at competitions. She would win competitions with just this dumb luck. And we thought that she was this amazing comp beast. And after the fact, Amy's like, I lucked into these things. But she was good at competition. So we went, okay, she's going to beat us in this final HOH with those competitions. And, she spent a month out of this house. So she's the only sane one still here. We voted her out once. Like, are we really going to take her to the end and let her win this thing? Hindsight being 2020, Taryn, we look at it and we go, maybe that would have been something the jury would have seen. But I think they had so many sour grapes against Danielle. Amy would have won Big Brother season 3. And so, we kept Lisa in there. We made a decision early on too. Lisa and Eric were on the block because they were showmance, and the house wanted to get rid of them. And Danielle and I changed the vote. And so it was supposed to be Eric going home, but we knew how the votes, and they were close. And Danny and I went, if we put our 2 votes in the mix, Eric goes home and we keep Lisa and we pull her in. And that's what we did. And so from that point on, early in the game, we had pulled her in, and she was not part of an alliance. We didn't have this formal thing, but it was like, she was always thankful and grateful, and she was working with us. And so we trusted her, and we shared information, and we liked Lisa. And so at the end of the day, it's like, and we love Amy, and like, don't get us wrong, but it was like Amy had, been on vacation in the middle of her summer vacation in the Big Brother house. And it was just hard to say that of the 2 who deserved to be there. And that's where we started making those decisions. And maybe that's what would have changed the trajectory. Maybe if it was Danny and Amy, Danny would have won it, but I don't think so. I think that jury, once they saw Danny doing a countdown in there, because she would be like, 4 to go, this many down and 4 to go, and then counting it down every week. And the devil thing got her in a lot of trouble with Roddy. He did not enjoy that. And so, and it was television, it was good, it was funny, like you got to laugh at yourself. And I do, like, I look back at that and I go, there is a picture of me in a Speedo in some sort of thing that blew up air, and we caught dollar bills, dollar bills, yo. Bro, it exists on the internet, yo. And so that thing, that was a competition on Big Brother season 3, and like humiliating, but that exists. And now, I've become a respected journalist in Orlando, Florida, and I've won Emmy awards and others and things.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So that still happened. So I don't know. I think that bottom line for me, Big Brother 3 was just the blast of a summer, the best summer. It was grown up, camp, but it was the experience that I don't think I would ever do again. And I know they talk, like we joked with Janelle and Kaser about a legend season. It's just shortened like they do with the celebrity season. So it's 2-3 weeks. Because what if you go in there and like Janelle and Kaser and they just like, nobody wants to work with you? Like that would be really, really tough. Like you're like, I'm nice. I have some good strategy. I did well in my game.
Who wouldn't want to work with you, Jason? Come on.
Who wouldn't want to work, you think, with Janelle and Kaser? You get some new school in there, and like that's the thing is we did an interview with Rachel from 20, Rachel Swindler.
Yes.
And it's so funny because we talk about it. I met Rachel last summer when she was here for Give Kids the World charity event, and they bring in all kinds of reality stars for a great local charity here, Give Kids the World in Orlando. Yeah. And so Rachel was on the show, and then we got done and we were finished with it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you should have used the veto." She was like, "That was you." And I was like, she still doesn't know who I am. Like, still, these people don't know.
Yeah, you're close. You're close.
like we talked for an hour. I met you a year ago. Like, but it's been so long. It's been so long. And then I think Janelle and Kaser were scary to them because they are legends. And I think people go, if you give them any opportunity and give them any power and give them any time in here, they're going to figure out a pathway to win this game. Yeah. And
they're not there to hang out all summer. They're there to play.
Yeah, when you're at the age that we are, the goal is to get there and you have an end game in mind. It is more about what that final prize is, how it will change your life, what it will do for your family, all of those kinds of things, than just going in there for a fun summer. It's like, at 25, I was flip-flopping around. I was working in video production. I was doing some stuff freelancing. It's like, I don't really have anything in mind. There's no family, there's no career, none of the pressures that are there now. And you can be kind of fun and fancy free, but now, no. And I like my life. I don't want to mess that up. It's like, I'll talk about Big Brother on a podcast like we do on the Secret Alliance. That's good enough. That's as close as it gets.
Jason, that today is the now the 19th anniversary since the September 11th attacks, and we all remember the Big Brother 2 contestants that were in the house during those attacks. That they were received a lot of attention of being sort of like the last people to know that September 11th had happened. I know that you were following the show closely at that time. I want to know, do you recall your experience on the first anniversary of September 11th being in that same Big Brother house?
I do remember that. And I'll talk about that, though, if you don't mind. I want to jump back to season 2, though, because that impacted me so much. Because at the time, I had been living in New York. My cousin was about to start at SUNY Purchase, and it was like, hey, let's spend this summer there before I start, like mid-September. And so I'd spent the summer in New York. The weekend before September 11th, I'd gone home for a friend's wedding. I was flying back on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, flying from Alabama to New York. Obviously, that didn't happen for about a week because air travel got shut down. But but I remember going on and watching the feeds and just watching the people in the Big Brother 2 house go, like, they don't know how our world just changed. Like, they don't get the magnitude of what has happened here. And as much as the producers can tell them, like, they haven't seen the news coverage, they haven't watched that video, they haven't seen it. And it was just this wild thing that I was like, when they walk out, like, the world has changed and they've still got another month or month and a half that they're sort of getting prepared for it, but don't know. And it was such an incredible thing. And it was moving and sad. And also this thing where it was like you get to prepare a little bit longer emotionally for. I don't know, and it was so powerful to just watch it, and I did, and I watched the live feeds like nonstop as they tried to understand it and digest it, and couldn't really even figure it all out because it was just something, incomprehensible at that point in time in our lives. How could this happen with one plane flying into, the World Trade Center, let alone two, and then another into the Pentagon, and then into a field in Pennsylvania? It was mind blowing, and they couldn't wrap their heads around it, and it felt like it was not real. And so it was kind of therapeutic for me watching them on the feeds, processing it as I was too. And so then I got back to New York, and I went to Ground Zero within just a matter of days, and was just moved beyond measure, and stood there in the ashes, and you could smell the smell. You'll just never forget. Like 1 week after everything had happened there, and you could only get up to a certain point at that time. It was weeks later that I would go back and get a little closer to Ground Zero. And I'm going to post out a little later a picture that I took just this past Christmas down at One World Trade Center, and being there and to see the footprints of those buildings at the reflecting ponds. And it still moves you 19 years later. But on our season, I do remember us taking some time and reflecting on it, and kind of each telling our own story about being now a year later, like we're here in the Big Brother house, and what we, where we were a year ago, and how our world has changed. And that was a great thing, because the thing that's so cool about Big Brother, not an all-stars season, but you come into a house and you meet all these people that you would never meet. There's no reason that I would have ever known any of these other people. Danielle, who, I'm so tight with now, and we're doing this podcast, a mom from Northern California. How would I meet her? How do I run into her in everyday life? I don't, outside of Big Brother. And then to hear how this changed her life and her family. And it was just so moving. And it was like, this was an amazing thing to get to experience it on 2002 of September 11th, a year later after the terror attacks. And it was great. And I hope that, people watched on the feeds and watched the show and saw what we tried to do to remember those whose lives were lost, and to pay a tribute and an homage to how we all came together as a country. And maybe on our season, we were a little kinder, and we were a little nicer, and we were a little more, a cohesive unit, because what we had collectively shared as a country the year prior, and didn't even, know these people until September 11th, 2002 in the Big Brother house. And they bonded us, through that experience, but also what we had all gone through. And we went, we're all the same people. And it was really great, and really, important again to just remember it 1 year later. But especially today, here it is, September 11th, 19 years later. Just to again say what we said then, and kind of the beginnings of early hashtags. It's never forget, and we don't, because we were all changed.
Yeah, really well said, Jason. And I will never forget just how united I felt like that everybody in the country was. It's one of the few times that I felt like that everybody in our country was like the national crisis, and we're all on the same page.
Yeah. We all became Americans.
We all became
one United States of America.
Yeah, and it was short lived, and the things were divided again, but that facing all the crises that we face in this country, we never had that point where we were all trying to we all sort of came together and said, hey, we're all battling against the same thing together. And I do hope that we could one day get back there, but a lot of work to do.
I agree 100%.
And I want to just
guys, I'm glad we talked about this too, because what an important day, and to remember that, in addition to, talking Big Brother 22 and walking down memory lane and all that.
Yeah, and I do want to bring it back to you and Danielle, and I think that because of who you both are as people, that you do a great job of there's a lot of difficult issues that come up because of the Big Brother season.
Yeah.
And I think that both of you and Danielle like have the similar sort of outlook of that we need to be able to talk about complicated things and not sort of immediately have, knee-jerk reactions and, in terms of like good and evil. Like there's a lot that needs to be talked through. And so we're all very lucky that you and Danielle have reunited for this project to, help to, talk about these difficult conversations and also, to have fun with the Big Brother fans.
Yeah, we're loving it. And the Big Brother fan community, I mean, Rob, Taryn, it's a crazy group, but it's a fun group, and they are passionate about this show. And I love, as a fan of the show for a couple of seasons before being on it, and then kind of returning to being a fan in season 4 and on to where we are today. I count it a blessing, and I feel lucky that I get to talk about the show and maybe weigh in, and people care to hear what I have to say. It's really great.
Yeah. Okay, Jason. Well, it's always a thrill whenever I get to catch up with you. I'll never forget the first time that I ever met you, because it was not when, or at least the first time I saw you, that it was May of 2002. And I was out in at the, I guess it was the Universal Sheraton.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
hanging out in a.
I wonder if they still use that. Yeah,
I don't know. Sequestered in a hotel room, and I saw you, and we were taking a bunch of standardized tests.
Yes.
And I said, "Look at this guy. Oh man, he's got great hair. This guy is this guy is perfect. What chance do I have?
No.
What chance?" This guy is the total package.
Come on, I cut you got to cut the feed. It's too flat. No, thank you, Rob. But then, so we didn't get to talk because you can't do that. But then when did we actually?
It just okay. I can tell you that.
And
also.
What is your journey too? Because I know people watching this know, but I don't really remember how.
Okay,
you ended up Survivor
I made I was always a fan of Survivor and Big Brother, and I love Survivor, but I also then I saw, and I did not love Big Brother 1 as much as Jason and his brother did, but I loved Big Brother 2 and I loved Dr. Will, and I said after I saw that I watched people go to Survivor Africa and be like dying of thirst, and go to Survivor Marquesas and get bid up to high heaven with the no-nos, and I said, you know what, Big Brother it is. And I could sit in a house all summer, and so I made my tape, and then I went to a bunch of auditions. I went to New York, and they said, okay, you're flying out to Los Angeles for the final auditions, and I went out there, and I remember, I think it was for like the next, I got to the hotel, and then I guess it was the next morning they were like marching us around to like all these different places to take like the SATs. And I remember I remember vividly, Jason was in my group, cool. And I really stood out to the point.
I'm confident you did much better than I did on those tests.
I don't know, and I'm sure I must have seen you a couple of other times on there.
And we talked about after that somehow you ended up in the Survivor world. Did they pluck you from BB casting into Survivor?
No. So I went down to The Wire, where I left. Like I went to CBS, and I ultimately I left feeling like very good about the whole thing. And it was right before ultimately they made the final call on the cast that Robin Cast called me up and said we really liked you, but we're going to go in another direction. And ultimately that Josh Feinberg beat me out for that spot. And so he was also from Long Island. And I think that it was probably down to me and him, and they ended up picking him to be on the show. Jason, if I was on the show, could I have been in the Secret Alliance?
Oh yeah, we would have pulled you in, Rob, because
you guys would have chewed me up and spit me out.
No, they thought that was going to happen to me. The producers were like, we're throwing this guy to the wolves, this mid-20s kid from Mobile, Alabama, who, and I was glad that I proved differently. No, we would have, and we worked with Josh. We tried. He was so tied to Roddy, though, that's where we couldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cried over Roddy.
Yeah. If I feel like if Rob had been on the jury instead of Josh, then I don't know. Maybe we would have had a whole different outcome.
Different game. Yeah. Because you would have respected the game, and that's what you loved when you saw Dr. Will. That's why you wanted to do the show. The game. It's all about the game, and you are. I mean, I feel like they should give you a chance. Like, go let Rob loose in the Big Brother house. Like,
Look, I'm the same with you with Survivor. It's like, what's the point? But anyway, so then and I was like, oh man, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get in better shape and I'm gonna do all these things. I'll be on Big Brother 4. And then I got a phone call in September of 2002, and it was somebody from Survivor casting, and they were like, hey, do you remember us from Big Brother? Do you want to be on Survivor? I was like, oh yeah, right. And they were like, well, would you come to Los Angeles? And so they were looking for someone who was like a Josh Feinberg for Survivor. And they had remembered me, Lynn, that you and I have this in common, that Lynn Spillman had a big role in our lives. Yeah. And Lynn remembered me from the casting and said, oh, this guy is funny. He's like Jerry Seinfeld. And so they ended up bringing me in. They had already cast Survivor the Amazon, but they were looking for somebody to be sort of like a comic relief type person. And so I was like in a final session with like 10 or 11 other people that they brought in like last minute after they did the full casting for Survivor 6.
Yeah.
And then they ultimately picked me out of that group and told me like, all right, you're leaving for Survivor in a month. I was like, wait, no, you're joking, right? No, I just wanted to be on Big Brother. I didn't want to go on Survivor.
But you played it brilliantly, and then ended up back in a Survivor All Stars. Yes, but seriously, kudos to you, Rob, as one of the players deserving to have won it, and one of the smartest to play the game who didn't win it.
Two robbed players right here.
Yes, two robbed.
Rob God.
And then that's our next podcast. It's called Rob.
Yes. If it doesn't work out with Danny, and then that. So I finally, I was so thrilled when I got the chance, and you and I don't know if I told you this, that you and Danny had a big influence on my strategy in Survivor the Amazon, where I was like, these two, Danielle and Jason, they were so brilliant. I need to find somebody and I'll make a secret alliance with them on Survivor, and this will be perfect. And nobody's done this before, and this is going to be it. And then when I got to, we were men versus women, but then when we swapped, that I had a good relationship with Dina, who was on my season. And I said to her, like, let's do this. And it was, and she watched Big Brother also. I'm like, we could be like Danielle and Jason. We could do that. Awesome. And she's like, oh, I love that. That's great. And ultimately, like, it was not as successful. She had a lot of other things going on. She was not as committed to our deal as Danielle was to yours.
And that's the only way it works. Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, that the summer of 2003, then I had gone and played on Survivor. And then there was a bunch of charity events. And I forget which one. I want to say, was it maybe Reality for Diabetes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was so that I got to meet you and Danielle. And it was.
We may have even bunked up. I don't know. I feel like they put 4 of us in a room, Rob. I don't remember. I don't remember if I had roommates. I blocked it out. I think everybody blocked a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of those nights are a blur for me, Jason. But that I don't know. Maybe was Marcellus there also? But I think
Mars may have come. Yeah,
I was so thrilled that I was like, I've met these people from TV, and they're just as cool in real life as I hoped that they would be. I was so over the moon. I was so happy.
That's the way I feel when I go. We do the charity event here, and it's really well done for Give Kids a World, and they bring in tons of Survivor and Big Brother people, and I feel the same way. I go in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so and so from Big Brother 21, from 22, from 20, and I freak out. I try to keep it all inside, but I'll meet these people and they're like, oh my gosh. And this one, Steve, who was a winner on Big Brother, and I was like, Steve, and he was like, Jason, and I was like, why do you even know who I am? And it's that mutual appreciation, but I feel like, I love the community, and I get as excited, like I met Davon 2 years ago at that event, and it's like, oh, I know her, I'm watching this season. It's like, I've met her, like we snapped a picture, like you feel like you have some personal connection. Like, she doesn't know who I am.
Jason, all right. Well, thank you for spending so much time with us. I know you're very busy and you have to run. Tara, anything else you want to know while we have Jason here?
A small thing. You probably don't remember this, but I also did a podcast recently on the origin of the term floater.
Oh, yeah.
And you are actually, when I went back to research, the first recorded person that I could find saying the term floater.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where that come from?
Yeah.
Or who
And
came
first,
from? Or
did
what
you
meant
know
by it?
that? Did you know that you had that claim to fame?
No. So I'm the first floater. That's amazing.
Well, the first person to say it, right?
You said it. I could find you saying it twice in the whole season. You said it, I think, to Roddy both times. You said, first you said, I'm not a floater in this game. And then later you
and
said,
I was a floater.
I have been a floater in this game.
Yeah. Well, and I did float a little bit, but I will argue that I am not your traditional floater, in that, Danielle and I were working things behind the scenes. And there are times where you have a week where you go, this is easy. It's going the way we need it to go for our game. But then you float. But there are times where, Danny and I were doing that. We were throwing hinky votes. We were changing the whole thing. Like, Roddy was not happy the week he thought he had the votes locked up and that Eric was going, but he didn't, explicitly ask me to vote a certain way. He just knew I was with him and like, this is what we were going to make happen. Right. And so, I feel honored that, Taryn, you've done that, like that you really know everything with Big Brother, to know that I coined the term. But it really was a bad thing to have played a game that way, because when I did casting and people would talk about for any show, Amazing Race or Survivor, especially with Survivor, and they were like, well, I'm going to be a floater, like you on your season. It's like, no, do not. That is, you're not going to get on the show. So I wonder if even, because it was part of my strategy, I was going to find someone to align with who was very different from me, a woman, probably a mother, so we wouldn't look like we were going to be aligned. Like, I went in with that as a strategy, and then I was going to stay under the radar. That's what I kept saying in casting, which was probably now like detrimental. Like, that's probably the reason that I was always like, oh, this guy, he's going to be so boring. He's not going to play. They probably were on the fence with me for a long time because I was trying to be a floater. And but it's not good TV. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's not exciting. Like, there were episodes that I didn't even exist on. Whoa, I got real excited. I'm going to knock my phone down. That I don't even exist on because I floated through that week. I wasn't in there doing anything. So yeah, I don't know that that's the title I want. And Danny and I have talked about floaters in this particular season because they're trying to do that. And Nicole F being one right now, really trying to float through.
Yeah. When you use the term, like, did you feel like you were, did you make it up intentionally, or was it something that you had heard before?
No, I don't know where it originated. But I think, and maybe it was, as Danny and I were talking about like how we were going to survive week to week, and, we're just like, we just got to float, and then it was like, oh, floater, that's a good term. And then it got used a couple of times. Sorry.
It's okay. It's a very long time ago, and it's very, it happened very,
no. But it is, let's just call it what it is. Like, it's boring television, but again, like the committee, it's boring television. It's not great for the show, but it is good game. And people who manage to stay out of being a target week after week after week, like, that is really,
don't
really
sell
good
yourself short. Okay. That it's bad television when the whole house is floating. It's not bad television when people are smartly floating to where the power is in the house.
Yes, week to week. And you still are working things under under the surface, and you're doing things. And because Danielle and I, and we famously, and kind of like, that was a great analogy. I wish they had a camera in the hot tub. Like, I'm sure it would have caught some nasty stuff, but the hot tub camera though, because there was a time where it was 4 or 5 of us, final 5 on Big Brother 3. And we were just chilling out in the hot tub one night. That's what you do. California night, when it started cooling down toward the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And you get in the hot tub and we're talking, and Amy famously said, I love that there are no more alliances in this house. And under the water, like, Danny and I are kicking each other. We're just like, she thinks there are no alliances. There are no, and I wish somebody could see that moment. And that was like the perfect example of, like, we looked like we were floating. We looked like we weren't doing anything, but under the water, like, we were kicking. There was stuff. We were busy. We were kicking for our lives in that game.
Jason, this was so much fun to get to catch up. Everybody should check out the Secret Alliance podcast with Jason Guy and Danielle Reyes, that you get to hear two Big Brother legends talk about the game with the most recently evicted house guests, a bunch of other great guests as well. And it's a really nice, breezy recap.
Yeah, we're not getting too deep, and I mean, Taran is the historian of Big Brother. And I listened to him on the podcast just to find out what I've missed out on in live feeds and all of that kind of stuff, because it's brilliant. And Puya today was talking on the one, and he cracked me up when he talked about David and his riddles. You know, he is. Yeah, he's like, if it was a fairy tale, he's the troll under there, like throwing the riddles, and nobody knows how to get across the bridge with his riddles. I don't know, David. But Danny and I, we keep it light. We're having some fun. We've had a little fun with David's Twitter feed and just teasing about David's game this season. And then, we'll talk about who we like and just try to give a little insight, because when people don't understand why somebody maybe made a decision that way, being in that house, like, we can help give it some context. And how in 1 week where something goes down and you're like, this person's a goner, like, you might think Christmas is going to be a goner this week, but how in one short week that can all change. And we get that. We understand the nuances from living in the house.
Yeah. Okay. So go subscribe to the Secret Alliance.
We're on YouTube and podcast places.
And on YouTube, because you know what? If you don't, they'll stop doing it.
Well, we think people like to see us sometimes, and I think it's more fun. I got to see Danielle. She's doing this from California, and I'm here in Florida. So I need to see her and see what she's, the reaction.
Danny looks very professional on the videos I've seen her. She's in a blazer. She has glasses on.
I catch her either right after work or before work. And I put on, the coat sometimes because I'm coming right after work and running in to do this.
I just want to also say that Danny is also one of the coolest people in real life. Every time I've ever had any interaction with her in person, it's so much fun. She's really one of the most fun people to hang out with. She's exactly like what you saw on the show, and I'm in awe of your friendship that you guys have had over all these years.
Yeah, we feel really lucky and blessed that we've kept it going for 18 years.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jason is also on Twitter. He's at Jason the News Guy, right?
Yeah, because that's my day job,
Great name.
my real gig.
Just can I ask you one question that I feel like that we did not hear from you a ton. You just guys, I gotta wrap this up. You were not super active on Twitter, I feel like, until Big Brother OTT. I feel like really
it was my jam.
Lit a spark in you. What was it about? I was like, does he know Morgan Willett in real life?
No. And then when I went out there in May to California a year ago, so it's been a year and some change. And I was like, I'll try to meet him and grab some dinner. I went to cover the opening of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge land at Disneyland for my station here in Orlando, because they months later then opened up the same thing. So we did this huge special from out there. The timing didn't work, but I think I loved that season so much. Not, it was kind of fun, and it turned out very different than it looked at the beginning of the season. But what I want for the live feeds, it would be for that every time, where I can watch the competitions play out from start to finish. And you tell me the Big Brother schedule, and I'm there to watch it. And then I get that nightly recap of here are a couple of things that happened on the live feeds. It didn't need to be slick and fancy. And then into, that nightly conversation where it starts getting good around, 8 or 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. And it was fun. And I that shortened timeline worked out perfectly in my life. And I think it was a better time. I wasn't as busy, and I was like, I'm all in on Over the Top, and then nobody else was, apparently, because CBS didn't do it. But I wanted to see the winner of that season, Morgan, end up on this season of Big Brother. That would have been cool. Why not include someone like that? And we got Jason Roy again. He was back for another season. It was a good time, and I felt like it was so perfect for fans because we got to see it all. I thought probably the Big Brother fans who wanted the curtain to be revealed, we got it that season.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm looking for another Over the Top season.
All right. Look, if they can't film anything else, it might just CBS might be just all Big Brother all the time.
Well, we talked about this, shortened Legend season. Let's just do that with OTT style live feeds without America voting, and it'll all be great.
I love it. I want it. Taran, make it happen. Call some people. Rob, call some people.
We'll get on it. All right. Of course. Taran, where can people check out more of what you're doing?
You can, of course, find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaran and on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong.
Of course, Taryn will be back with another live feed update tomorrow morning to go over all of the nominations. A Legacy Watch Roundtable on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, first kickoff for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be back after the episode on Sunday night. A little bit of a later start because of the NFL football. Just keep an eye on Twitter in terms of what time that Sunday night Big Brother is going to start. Probably, I think that they're scheduled around like 8:30 or so, following 60 minutes whenever that airs on your local CBS station. We'll be live after the East Coast version of that. Thank you so much, Jason. This was such a pleasure to get to catch up with you.
It was fantastic. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Taryn. I loved it. This was great.
Yeah.
I didn't know I would keep you for this long, but it was a blast.
Well, okay. Well, it was great to catch up with you. Check out our exit interview with Bailey, and then will you guys speak with Bailey on?
We're talking to Monday.
Mm-hmm. Monday.
Yeah, so
all right.
Monday evening we'll drop that. If we can get it out. Yeah, Monday night. We've got some good stuff to talk to her about.
Well, that's good because you can talk to her after she's gotten her phone back. So I'm sure she's going to have a lot to say.
Yeah, that does help when they've sort of gone, oh, this was happening. I didn't know that. And then they'll spill some dirt.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks, bye.